Let's talk about joint checks. I actually really like those. Here's something that actually can get some traction on it and can be used concurrently with mechanics liens, contracts, and credit applications. So all of those things are a lot nicer. You're going to get a lot more leverage out of those than, say, your prompt payment or your trust fund. Joint checks are basically a tri-party. It's whoever's issuing the check and then me as the supplier and maybe the contractor. So as a credit manager, this is a tool that you can use in a situation where your customer says, hey, I've never worked with this GC before. I'm not really comfortable. What do you know? And then, hey, let me suggest the joint check, because now we're both party to this together. So there's two of us now fighting him. Or, hey, we haven't had the best relationship moving forward. We haven't had the best payment history together. Let's do a joint check on this project. It might be the only way you're able to sell a customer. They have limited financial resources. They don't have a good credit history. They've had some payment issues with you, but the joint check would allow you to be able to sell them in, again, using that mechanics lien leverage. You can also use, with that contract as well. And this might be a good opportunity to bring John in as our expert legal advice to talk about joint checks and the verbiage. On a joint check, what are things that are absolute deal killers for those that a credit manager should watch for? And would you recommend that they get with their attorney and craft their own that they understand and is written in a fair manner, for all parties? Sure. Mostly me, because I want to get paid.
Certainly, it needs to be explicit in what that means when a joint check is written. So when I am receiving a joint check, that means you want to detail out that reduces my amount, the amount that you owe to me, by X dollar amount, and that it also reduces the obligations owed to the subcontractor or the supplier or whoever it is below you that you're getting joint checked with. But there needs to be an acknowledgement of what amount of that check is going to you, if you're waiving anything or if you're not waiving anything. It's a decision that you need to have with your credit manager and with your attorney to write explicitly what you're looking for and what that joint check means. Because we see a lot of times in contracts where it just says, we can write joint checks. Well, the subcontractor who received the joint check is saying, well, that's great, but it didn't reduce the amount you owe me because I have these claims out there, and so I didn't waive a thing. You sent a joint check, but you still haven't paid me what I owe. So it can cause unnecessary disputes if you don't explicitly detail what that means and how the balances are reduced, what rights are waived, if any. So you just need to be very explicit as to what that allows.
So what's the most poorly crafted joint check agreement you've ever seen?
Well, I think more detail is better, but what I run into problems with is vagueness. Okay. Even if it's negative against my client, I like to know what it means. I like there to be an explicit agreement that's not vague. The agreements just say we have the right to issue joint checks. That's what I don't like, because I don't know what that means. So even if it's a negative inference against my client, or if it's not good for my client, I'd like to know what it means, and so we can follow whatever that is required. But when it just broadly says I have the right to issue these, and it doesn't say what happens with the amount owed for you and the parties below you, what things are being waived, that's what I run into with issues, because then you've got to get paid to argue what this meant between the meeting of the minds of the parties.
Joint checks are great. They get a bad rap, and back in the day when I first started, there'd be like 15 companies on a joint check, and you were always vying to see who would be like the leader, who would be the one to take the actual check, get everyone else to sign off on it, and then have to cut checks back to everybody else. Today, they're much more simplified, they're much more straightforward. What you want to pay attention to with a joint check is the language. What it doesn't say and what it does say can hurt you. So you want to make sure that you have some either or language in there. Let's hop over to the whiteboard and demonstrate how a joint check works. One thing to really remember about joint checks is they only work if the check actually gets cut. So if nobody cuts a check, you're still not getting paid. You want to have a mechanism built into your joint check agreement to make sure that if there's a problem between the prime and the sub and you're the supplier, that prime or general contractor can cut it direct to you and you're not part of whatever's going on over here. Other things you want to watch out for is giving up lien rights, agreement to not lien the property, Any kind of warranty, indemnification, same kind of things built in there. You want to keep it very simple. It's best to have your own form. For a complete list, go on to the Levelset website, plug in joint check, and protect yourself. So you want to make sure if there's still a scuffle between your customer and the payor, that they have a mechanism and a leverage to pay you directly. So it all comes down to what's in the language. So it's in your best interest to have your own joint check agreement. Don't just take whatever somebody else gives you. Because just like contracts, whoever writes the paper, whoever writes the form, usually gets to make the rules. So you want to make sure you understand and know what's in there. Keep it simple, but make sure that there's some out leverages for you. This is just a small taste of a much larger class. You can take the full class for free at levelset.com. Join me.